to impact investing. I am proud to work with the Community Foundation and their Impact Investing Fund on their investment committee, trying to make sure that we're directing investments to organizations and programs that are really looking to have a major impact in our community and in the world. I am also extremely proud to be associated with our next speaker and the group that's represented, the Emory Impact Investing Group. Emory has done something that in my mind is groundbreaking in that they've marshaled a group of very intelligent, high energy, very caring students to really think about how they can have impact in the Atlanta community during their 4 years at Emory. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce the CEO of that group, Ashwini Krishnamurthy, who is a senior at Emory, native of Kansas City, and I believe has been involved in the group her entire Emory career. And she's going to share with you what they've done and how they think about impact and how they are looking to scale what they're doing, not only in Atlanta, but beyond. And I did want to make one addendum to one of Kwanda's early quotes or early comments about everybody you would see today being an expert in the field. I in no way consider myself an expert in impact investing. Rather, I consider myself a student. And I am learning every day and learning so much from both the Community Foundation and their work in the impact investing world, as well as the students at Emory. So thank you, and I present Ashwini.
Hi everyone, as Ron said, my name is Ashwini Krishnamurthy. I am a senior now, that's so weird. I'm a senior at Emory studying finance at the Goizueta Business School and then also public health. And as Ron was saying, I started this group as a first year. It was the very first year that we had given a loan, and I've really seen this organization grow. And here is, wrong direction. Sorry about this. There we go. Okay. So here's what our team looks like now. Can we get to the next slide? There we go. So, and here's what our board of advisors and our credit committee look like. So we put together a team of some of the most incredible people in Atlanta on the accelerator side, on the entrepreneurship side, from the business school perspective, and then also the finance perspective to really get other perspectives on how to best go about what we do. And then we also have a credit committee that advises on the loans that we provide. And so as you can see, Ron is on both. And if you ask anybody in our organization who's had the opportunity to work with Ron, we all want to be Ron when we grow up. So the opportunity to get to work with him and everybody else in this organization really goes towards what we want to do, which is, and so what that is providing microloans to local entrepreneurs in the Atlanta area who don't have access to traditional sources of capital. And so when we're thinking about doing this, we're looking at the micro business gap, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But basically closing that micro business gap within the high poverty areas of Atlanta and hopefully around the country, and doing so through capital, but also doing so through community support and closing the network gap to provide an enabling environment for these entrepreneurs to grow and create successful businesses. And so as we're going through this presentation today, we're looking at where we fall within Emory, but also how Emory falls within this general scheme of the socially responsive investing space. And then going from that to talk a little bit more about that micro business gap research, which is the foundation for what we do. And then following that by talking a little bit more about our model, but ultimately our investments and our entrepreneurs and why their stories matter for the Atlanta community. And then I won't touch on this too much during the presentation, but we're also starting to think about how we can start solving this micro business gap problem in other communities around the country, and would love any thoughts you would have on that. So please feel free to talk to our members of more about what we're doing on that front as well. And so tapping into socially responsive investing. And from the 3 years that I've been in this organization, this space has completely exploded. And so when we're looking at universities and where our position falls within this, there are very few universities who've started to figure this space out. But the University of California system, Stanford, and then Harvard are all looking at this from an ESG perspective. And so similar to what Mark was talking about, there's a type of fund called an environmental, social, and response and governance investing fund, where a lot of these universities can go in and put capital into socially good causes spread across the nation. And so where I think Emory comes in that's a little bit unique is in this community investing, this place-based investing space where our students, our faculty, and a lot of our alumni base are targeted directly towards the Atlanta community. And so when we're thinking about how we're directly in the Atlanta community, our group, as well as a lot of business accelerators started through Emory, are founded on this concept of the micro business gap. And so the Center for Social Enterprise at Weta has put together research over the last few years on what the micro business gap is across the country and in Atlanta. And so Peter Roberts, a professor in the social enterprise, has formed research that shows that between the low poverty areas of Atlanta and the high poverty areas of Atlanta, there's no difference in terms of the amount of entrepreneurs who are excited and ready to start businesses. However, there is a big difference in the amount of capital as well as the network opportunities in these areas. And so where we work within the Clarkston, Eastlake, and Southside communities of Atlanta, specifically targeting these entrepreneurs, hoping to provide capital, but also community support in order for them to continue to create jobs, to open up storefronts, and also to provide more community resources for their areas.
I like what they were about. I like that they were committed to social entrepreneurship. I like that they were committed to helping the local economy and the local market grow. So we had a great team of support, and then we had, cheerleaders who really wanted this for us as well, as much as we wanted it, and most importantly, who believed in the vision and the mission of the business.
It's been extremely helpful to the business.
Having that team, it was really important to me, and I like that. Being able to bounce and brainstorm and have someone help you with the research. And so I wasn't trying to start this business by myself.
The impact of this work is amazing.
The Emory Impact Investing Group is a student-run organization aimed at improving the economic vitality of the Metro Atlanta community. We provide short-term debt loans to entrepreneurs in historically underprivileged communities who do not have traditional access to capital in an effort to close the so-called micro-business gap.
I'm Peter Roberts. I'm a professor of organization and management at the Weta Business School at Emory University. A micro-business gap formally recognizes that in our poorest residential neighborhoods, the biggest problem economically is the lack of micro-businesses. There are about 30% fewer micro-businesses per capita in poor neighborhoods than there are in the corresponding wealthier neighborhoods. So the way the students, the undergraduate students, the EIIG kids, the way they've nailed it with their business model is that they come with the ability to deploy capital, but the way that they go about their due diligence process does an awful lot of benefit inside an organization, both closing knowledge gaps, but also closing network gaps. So you end up with an entrepreneur that was promising, and then you have this systematic and semi-long-term program that helps them get across a number of the chasms that they need to cross in order to become a stable, thriving business.
To find out more about our organization, find us on Facebook or visit our website at EmoryImpactInvesting.com.
And so as we're thinking about the micro business gap and what we do, as Peter puts it, the EIG kids, what we are aiming to look at is on the spectrum of financial returns to community impact, where we fall. And so when we're thinking about that aspect of the business, we're looking for financially viable businesses, but also businesses that have a direct community impact. And whether that be through a social mission or through the ability to, in the future, with some additional capital, create jobs or open up a new storefront or the inflow of resources to that community. And so our loan structure is a $5,000 to $10,000 loan to these entrepreneurs for their opportunities to kickstart their business. And so it's $5,000 to $10,000 at around a 5 to 6% interest rate. And the loan repayment term is generally 2 to 3 years. And so if you have any questions on those numbers, we have members at all of the tables, so feel free to ask them as well. Our model. So when we're thinking about what that loan structure looks like, that process of giving out capital, we get to know those entrepreneurs 3 months before we actually give out that loan. And so when we're looking at who we want to source to or who these entrepreneurs are, we start off with accelerators. And so we have Start Me, which is an accelerator run through the social enterprise at Griswold, along with the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is formally run by Mayor Kasim Reed. And so we work with entrepreneurs in these accelerators, and at the end of their time, as they're building their business skills, if they need capital, they apply to our loan. And so over the last 4 years, we've had around 50 applications, and around 10 of them have moved on to that due diligence process. And so we basically have an entire room of students who, after we do the interviews, makes the decision on, yes, I think we're comfortable moving this entrepreneur to due diligence. And this phase is where we look at the social impact of the business, but also the financial viability, what they're asking for with the loan, and if we think that in the end, they will be able to continue to pay us back. And so at that point, after that 2-month due diligence process, they get approved for a loan. And then after that process, going through the next 2 to 3 years, we're consulting with them as they're repaying. And so we have a team of EIG consultants that are there with them for the next 2 to 3 years, helping with websites, helping with finding new spaces, and really helping just as a community support system if they need to bounce ideas off of anybody. And that idea of sustainability is core to what we do. So not only are they getting that capital, but as they're repaying, it's going directly back into a fund to go then to the next round of entrepreneurs who need access to capital. And so far, we've raised $70,000 in order to do this, and right now that $70,000 is invested in 6 entrepreneurs and 3 more that are in the pre-approval phase. So hopefully they'll be getting loans soon as well. And how we see impact through this organization is both on the financial side and the impact side. And on the financial side, if we can get from that $70,000 mark to the $250,000 mark, that capital would be able to provide 10 loans per year to these entrepreneurs in a way that we wouldn't have to do any more fundraising, and it would also be growing. So not only self-sustaining, but also growing towards a larger fund where the interest rate from those loans would be enough to continue to provide more loans to entrepreneurs. And then on the impact side, every single entrepreneur has these goals for their business with the loan to either hire new employees or to get their mission out there. And impact for us is for each of those individual entrepreneurs being able to help them personally get to those goals. And so we can talk about numbers for a really long time. We're a finance organization, we love them. But for the most part, our biggest asset and how we tell our story is through our entrepreneurs. These 4 entrepreneurs have been with us for a really long time, some almost 3 years. We have Nicole, Eden, Akizi, and Doris. So Nicole is very close to my heart. When I first joined this organization, my first role was on Team Nicole. And so when we started with her, we essentially started helping with her business. She owns a custom cake, truffle and custom cake business. And so we helped her with building a website, an online storefront. And now she's to the point where our current Team Nicole is helping her hire a new employee and also looking at different locations within Eastlake for a storefront. And then we have Eden, who is so passionate about what she does. Eden runs a low-cost immigrant and refugee legal service. And so for a lot of her clients, they don't have access to pay upfront legal fees. And so she allows them to pay on payment plan as they're getting services to help with any situations that they're in. And so for that, she really has so many clients. She needed extra help on the floor, and then also needed a bigger space. And so in order to be able to do that, she had to make sure that her finances were in order, her accounting was in order, and our consulting teams helped her with that process. And now she's hired new employees and also has moved to a larger space. And we have Akizi. Akizi self-proclaims as the bug lady. She basically works with sustainable protein sources, and so she has baked goods that have mealworms in them. And the idea is that with the mealworms, it's a low-cost protein source for people who are in food deserts who need access to those forms of protein, but can't afford regular meat or any other forms of protein that you would generally find in the grocery store. And so with Akizi, she has been a complete trailblazer in this space. She has all the regulations and policies put in place in order to do this, and because of that, she's now transitioning to being a mealworm supplier for all of the other businesses that are out there that are looking for this type of service. And so for her, our consulting team right now is working on a pitch competition to help her get a little bit more money to help make that transition. And then we have Doris. And so Doris, similar to Eden, works with an immigrant and refugee population. However, when she started her business, which is a lot of jewelry and clothing, she's thinking, how with this population can we really utilize their skills? And so a lot of them are able to make clothing and jewelry that she then takes and sells at trade shows, and then provides them with some of their capital to help supplement their income for their families. And so when we're thinking, with these 4 entrepreneurs, where are we going? So this is a sneak peek. You all are probably the first to know. But earlier this week, we approved 2 new loans. So one to Carla of Carla's Boutique, and she owns an international clothing store based in Southside, who's looking to open a new location, as well as Kevin Rogers of Schwack's Laboratories, and he produces a custom hairstyling product for African Americans. And is looking to really build out his commercial space, and he's now on Amazon. He has great ratings. And so with these 2 businesses, we are really looking to continue investing to the Carlas and to the Kevins of Atlanta, but we're also really looking at how can we help other organizations, other nonprofit organizations, universities, implement similar models to target the same micro-business gap in their areas. And so while we are really excited to share with you over this next lunch period what we do, we're also really excited to learn more from you as the leaders of social impact in the Southeast. So thank you. Do we have time for questions? Oh, perfect.
So Ashwini?
Yes.
Dwayne Marshall. I'm with the Southeastern Council of Foundations, along with my colleague S.C. Spencer and SECF, as we call the Southeastern Council. We're proudly sponsored by SunTrust. It's our biggest partnership, so we want to thank them for hosting this conference. I am so fired up by this topic. It's very near and dear to my heart. And we do a lot of work around impact investing with our members, and Mark Crosswell, who spoke earlier, is one of our members. He led our Family Foundation members in a similar conversation earlier. And the last thing is Akizi Stokes, who you profiled, was actually one of my classmates while I was at Emory.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's good to see your face again. My question is, your point when you were introducing your discussion, you're right, this field has completely just grown by leaps and bounds in the last few years. Is there a network of other leading institutions in the Southeast, like Emory, that also has student clubs who are actively doing impact investing, and are there spaces and places for you guys to say share deals, share lessons learned, that type of thing?
This is probably the most ideal question. So right now there are very, very few undergraduate or MBA impact investing organizations. However, we really feel passionate about our model and have spent the last 4 years building upon it. So right now what we're doing is trying to create this network of organizations who could do similar things or implement similar models. So Priyanka, who's sitting up here, who's our Chief Operating Officer, is working on building out a national expansion plan so that other universities can target this area. We've been specifically talking to a few universities, to be specific, U Michigan, working in the Detroit area, and then also Vanderbilt. And so those are very much in the international, like the very like infant stage of conversation, but we're really looking to see what support systems they have and if this is possible, because ultimately our group wouldn't be possible without the accelerators in our area and without the support system that we have from the Atlanta community. But thank you, great question.
Great presentation. Question is, as you graduate, what does the pipeline behind you look like? Is it a year-by-year program where someone comes in as a freshman or a sophomore and then they grow, so it will be continuous, so 10 years from now, there'll be 100 people who've gone through gone through the program. Is that how it will work? Or?
Definitely. So succession is a huge part of what we do and a lot of how we think about this organization, because we're working with real entrepreneurs, and that story and that ability to help at all levels is crucial. And so how it looks is a lot of members join as a first year or as a sophomore. And when they join a consulting team, but also could be helping on the accelerator side or also on the due diligence side, which is that loan vetting process. And so as they get involved in the group as an initial member, then they have the opportunity to become a team lead for the consulting teams. And so they're like that direct line of contact with the consultant, with the entrepreneurs. And then from there, depending on how they're interested in the group and why they're passionate about it, a lot of people like being a team leader, like being on the consulting teams because it's that on the ground work. And then we also have an executive board. So every year around the November time, we do a transition period. And the reason we do it at November is so that the person who was in the position beforehand has an entire 6 months to 8 months to really train the next person in the position. And if you ask any of our alumni, it doesn't go away. We still have so many of our alumni who are actively involved in what we do and want to find out more. One alumni who spent the weekend listening to me present and practice several times. So people get really involved and don't really leave. It's a great organization.
So thank you. That was a great presentation. I'm curious, obviously, in addition to the capital, the support that your group is giving the entrepreneurs is so important.
Yes.
Are you also creating networking and accountability support among the entrepreneurs?
That's a great point. And something that we've definitely started to think about more as our portfolio is growing. And so right around, I think, May of last year, we did a panel where we got all 4 of our entrepreneurs at the time together to speak about their challenges and experiences. And it was probably one of the most moving experiences for everybody in the audience, including myself, but also was an opportunity for them to really get to know each other. And from that, we actually had a partnership between Doris, who is the fashion business, and then also Akizi, who does the bugs. And they did an event together called Bugs, Beats, and Beer, which was a community event, brought everybody together. And we've started to see more of those partnerships form. Kevin is partnering with Ashley, who's one of the entrepreneurs who is in due diligence, and also with Carla's business, to start thinking about how do we combine these different areas to really provide opportunities for the community. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.